All right, everyone. I'm super excited to have my friend Jeff on here with me at Success Agent Stories. Jeff, the goal of this conversation is to unpack what people don't see, right? I believe we all look like finished products in the world of social media and stats. In 2024, you sold 34 homes basically with just one other person. And I talk a lot about bigger is not better, better is
Hmm.
better, right? I talk about we're in a season, right? We're all in a season, right? Sometimes uh, the season is when you're a young person and have no one that depends on you, partner or kids. And I tell people you should work 12 hours a day till you drop because energy is a superpower. But then, you have a young family, and I highly don't recommend you do that. Um, and then you're an empty nester again. And then you could do that again if you chose to. And I think people miss the mark in the sense of like, what should I do? It's like, well, what is the best thing for you? Right? Like sometimes we just need a break and take some time for mental health. So let's start at wherever you want to start at the beginning. But before real estate, what got you into real estate? Tell us that part of the journey.
Yeah, thanks, Leo, for having me on your show. This is awesome. So, yeah, my first career was at Intel Corporation. So I was a technology guy and worked really hard, and that was in Chandler, Arizona. Uh, got my MBA there, traveled the world, got to work in what was called the virtual factory. So whatever we did in Chandler, we had to do in Malaysia, we had to do in Israel. We had to copy exactly the tool sets that we had in our logistics areas and in manufacturing across all the different virtual factory. That was a lot of fun. That was exciting. But after 7 years, I just wanted more, and I always was interested in real estate. So I made the jump, and they gave me. They were offering voluntary separation packages back then, so I took it. And the next week, I saw that there was an application that was out for KB Home. I'm sure you're familiar with that company, national home builder. So I walk into an interview with 35 other people, and they literally had a broker staff in front, like four brokers at a panel, and they asked us all to stand up and tell us why they should hire us. So I stood up, and I knew nothing, Leo, about nothing about real estate. I just said, well, last week I quit a Fortune 500 company, and if you give me a year from now, I'll be your number one agent. And everybody laughed in the whole room. And I ended up getting hired. And a year after that, on the leaderboard for the Phoenix division, I was number one in the entire division. And then they made me a regional sales manager, where I was turning about 900 units in my whole network that I had, my whole group. I had about 40 agents, had about 14 communities, and that was back in like '03, '04 timeframe, and it was cooking in Phoenix. So that was how I was introduced into real estate.
Talk about that transition. So you started off as a at a home builder, but it's still a job, right? Um, what made you go, okay, the Michael Gerber entrepreneurial myth? No, like most people can go back to like my manager looked at me sideways and I said, I'm smarter than them. I'm going to do it. Talk to me about that process.
Yeah, I think it was a good transition for me because I was going from a W-2, employee at a, very large corporation. And I thought, if I can get on here, they pay you a draw, as you begin to, steadily build your sales. And it was kind of a good transition instead of going straight into 1099 income. So, and there was a lot of training and support. I knew that I was a hard worker. So I knew if I could be trained properly, I knew I'd produce. It also kind of depends on where you're placed, what community you're at, of course. But I felt like, okay, you give me the training, and I'll get the job done. So it was kind of a good transition from going straight to it, instead of going straight to a 1099.
And so what did your like first year self-employed agent look like? Like first year.
Yeah. So after KB Home and after I was doing all those deals, I was approached by Keller Williams, and I became a team leader. So I've kind of been in management most of my career, interestingly. That was where I was comfortable. I'm comfortable leading people. But when I led the couple franchises that I was involved with in '04, I was an agent. I was doing production. I was also a team leader. So I basically reported up to an owner, and I had to report everything. The P&L. I was hiring, firing, working with the broker staff, coaching, training, and recruiting. And I became a really good recruiter. I've probably brought in about 2,500 people over the course of my career in my own company that I owned after KW and Keller Williams. And then I became a master faculty instructor with Keller Williams. That was fun. So I was all in. I had a great experience there. And I was doing moderate production, but I was really more excited about teaching agents. So I bought a lot of books. I read them. I was kind of a self-learned guy. And even like that Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, it was a great book. I memorized it. People would be like, how do you grow a team? Look on page 212 or wherever, right? I knew exactly how to do it by the book, but I knew I had to get in the trenches and do the work. And I learned from the agents. As I coached them, I was learning from them, and it was really kind of a great experience with that company.
What clicked when you decided to come here and get out of that management type role?
Yeah, so I came to EXP in 2018. And it was funny because I had been looking at EXP for years, and I was studying the model, and I was like, this could be a perfect model. And because I've known all the models, I've recruited against all the models. And so the day that I made the switch was the day after my good friend Curtis Johnson made the switch. A lot of people don't know this story. It's a great story. So he used to work for me at Keller Williams years before when I was running that market center. So when he joined, I called him and I said, we have to meet. And I said, I'm going to join. He's like, well, don't you want to talk about it? I go, no. I go, because I trust you. And I've worked with you for 20 years, 15 years. I'm going to come over. I'm going to join. He goes, I have no appointments tomorrow. You want to meet me at 6 o'clock in the morning at Denny's? I'm like, yeah. So we met at Denny's at 6 a.m., Leo, signed up that day. And that was, 2018.
And then and how was that early process, and what about it was the interesting part?
Yeah. So when I first joined, and this was after I spent 5 years growing my whole company called United Brokers Group in Chandler. I grew that from 0 agents to 250 agents in 5 years. I'm sorry, 6 years. So I grew that. And at that point, my partner and I basically went separate ways. We sold our shares. And then I spent a few years in title. So I was researching. And when I was in title, I was like, gosh, I'm really missing real estate. It's like when you love real estate, you love real estate. So I was like, who do I get back involved with? So I finally found EXP is the one. But then I was still kind of into the job thing. I had a license with EXP and I was working for a title company, and I really wasn't all in. Huge mistake. This was back in 2018. I wasn't going all in because I still had my security blanket with that high paying job in the title world. So I didn't really start working hard in EXP until probably the middle of 19. And that's where I decided, you know what? I've been in management my whole life, my whole career. I'm going to get out and sell some houses. And I wanted to make sure I wasn't a fraud with myself, right? I didn't want to teach something to somebody if I hadn't been in the seat. So it was great. I went all in. I was selling a bunch of houses. I became a mentor in the company, and I was like focused on being the best practitioner I could be. And it was really kind of a gratifying experience. So that's at the beginning. That's how I kind of launched when I was with EXP.
And so how do you balance? Because what I like about when I look at your business, it's um, a really good balance between personal production and also revenue share. And again, sometimes we see team leaders, and I say it to them all the time, like, who put up these big numbers, and I'm like, but what's your net? What are you taking home? And what kind of um, liability do you carry every month? Like, right, if you have a big team and you have space and payroll, um, uh, I feel that when I do one-on-one calls with team leaders, I feel like most of the time I'm coaching them to shrink down a little bit. It's like, look, I've talked to team leaders who are doing, 150 million, 100, 200 units. But after asking some probing questions, they're still doing 60, 70% of the units, and they have 50 people on their team. I'm like, your life would be simpler if you went from 50 to 10, and your net would probably stay the same. And, maybe you'd have some time off because you weren't babysitting folks. Talk to me about how you think through that.
Yeah, it's such a great question, Leo. It's, like you said, it's not what you make, it's what you net. And I can honestly tell you, like at 5:30 at night, 6 sometimes, I shut it down. I get to spend time with my wife. I'm an empty nester, and it's like when I was raising my kids, I always put a premium on balance. and I've got two amazing kids that are adults that are just killing out in the world. So I have a very tight calendar. If you were looking at my calendar, it's probably very similar to yours. Everything that's dollar productive is green, and I have a very high expectation of myself every day that I'm going to hit the big rocks. And I'm always spending about 10 hours a week on growth, agent growth. And then the rest of the time I'm spending on production and coaching agents in my organization. I would much rather have a larger rev share organization than a large team. I have no interest in it because I would rather have a small team and have a good net and go out there and do my production at a moderate level and cherry pick the ones that I want and hand the other ones off to my business partner, who's basically my buyers and listing agent. So I've taken him from the beginning. First year, he sold 14 houses. Now his second year, after being a brand new agent, he's going to be an icon. He's right on track to be an icon. So to me, I'm a developer of people. As I've always done that. If I identify talent, I know how to take them through the process to be an amazing leader. And that's where I'm at right now, right? I have like about 5 generals in my group. I'm really focused on them to help them win. And that's what I love about our model. It's I have a lot of balance, which I like.
Well, I think you just pointed out something out very interesting. I think when people think of attraction or even team building, they think they have to do it all themselves. And for most folks who make a meaningful amount of revenue from revenue share and or even a team, it's actually you just said you have 5 folks, right? Like even in what I do with 80 some thousand agents and 2,300 full-time employees, I don't have that many direct reports, right? It's a handful of folks who then have folks underneath them. How do you, whether it's team building or attraction, how do you think through that, or how do you teach that part?
Yeah, I mean, I've always believed that in the 80-20 rule, 20% of your organization is going to give you 80% of the results. Actually, it's probably more like 90-10 in real estate. So I'm constantly, putting things up around me. I've got grease boards and whiteboards all around me all the time. It's like it's like a center of nothing but information around me of who are my people that I'm focused on? What are their goals? I know all the people in my organization that are the most talented. I know their goals, and it's important to me. It's important to me that I help them hit their goals and they feel that. And I take the time. I would say I have a really high EQ. I take the time to talk to people, and not just about their business, but about their families. I think it's really a shame when people say, you can't be a leader and care about people's families. You got to keep it separate. No, not at all. I've never been that type of a leader. I've gone to a lot of funerals over the years. I've gone to a lot of marriages, and it's the way I want to live my life. So I take a personal interest in the people that I think have the most talent and are doing the work. If I tell them, hey, do this, I expect them to do it. And I'll give them a little grace if they don't do it a couple times, but they're going to show me. They're going to show me if they're serious about this business, and I'll know pretty quickly. And that's who I spend most of my time with.
On that thread, if you don't mind, I want to get a little bit personal. And you've shared with me in the past about some of your experiences and some stuff you've overcome. And if you're comfortable talking about it on the podcast, if you could share how COVID affected you and how you were able to get past that with the company and what you were able to work through.
Thank you, Leo. Yeah, it's I went through a really hard time during COVID. I know many people have. And so I'm a part-time pastor. So I spend about 10% of my time sometimes preaching. I also go into a lot of hospitals, and I see people that are shut in or they're sick, perhaps they're terminally ill. And I also mentor student pastors. So that's kind of the other part of my life. But during COVID, I know a lot of the elderly in my church, and I literally buried 12 people in a period of a year. And that was hard, Leo. That was really, really hard, seeing my best friends, and many of them succumbed to COVID. But what was really hard, and now I can finally get to the point where I can talk about this without crying. But my dad was a Vietnam veteran. And a lot of people don't realize that over 50,000 Vietnam veterans suffered from cancer because of Agent Orange. Well, my dad had throat cancer because of Agent Orange. And he was going into chemo. And after a week and a half of chemo, this was back in July of 2020, he became dehydrated. He didn't want to go to the hospital because he knew that if we went to the hospital, he'd probably die there. but we had no choice because he was completely dehydrated, couldn't even sit up. Brought him to the hospital, and 3 days later he died. And as soon as he got there, they said, your father he has COVID, and my father's a great man. He signed a DNR. He did not want to be resuscitated. He was ready, and he had his own journey, which is a whole nother conversation. But I wasn't able to really go in and see him. And you hear all these stories of people that can't see their loved ones when they were dying, and I literally suffered many, many hours in this office, crying for hours in the morning. And this was during 2020. Angry, frustrated, angry at everything, government, people. I was not a nice person in 2020. I had so much emotion flowing out of me. And it took me about a year and a half. And honestly, EXP helped me get through that because of the revenue sharing that I was getting, and also the friendships. People just caring enough to just hang out with me and talk to me and listen, because I had to get through a lot, and it was very tough. Not sure I'm even still over it to this day, but working through it, and so yeah, that was hard. And I have to say, I love this company because of the friendships I've made, and it's given me an opportunity. I had time to get through that, emotionally, and I wasn't so pushed to do production because I just spent 10 hours a week just trying to move the needle, with building an organization, and that gave me time to breathe. So that's my story about that.
You touched on kind of how you break down the hours because there is there are folks and I'm very transparent with the numbers. 80/20 applies. 80% of our agents don't really participate in revenue sharing. They're just here to sell homes, which is fantastic, and that's why everything we do is geared towards production. But the folks who do add that leg of revenue to their world, and in your case, I won't be too specific, but for UCAP, and I pay you multiples of your CAC back in revenue share. And the folks that still in production and still have a good balanced business, kind of say that same number you just said, 10 hours a week, which I think some agents hear that and go, that's not that much. But I would flip it and say it is. It's 2 hours a day, right? Which, if you prospect for your production business, how do you balance that? Talk to me how you think of time. Um, yeah, because that's an important one, and especially for the solos listening, right? Because that's actually who I think through the most. Solo practice, 80-90% margin, right? So like whatever your GCI is, you're keeping most of that, unless you're doing like a lot of cost per lead stuff where you're putting out capital. But for the most part, if you have a sphere of influence business, if you have a database business, that it's a different story.
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. So when I do my lead gen, it's about 3 hours a morning. I believe in morning rhythms. I think it's so critical. So I do, miracle morning every day for the last 5 years. I've done all my 5 steps before we even got on this call. But when I do my 3 hours, I'm spending 2 hours on lead gen for agent attraction. And I actually call people around the country. I call them, and it's not that hard of a conversation. And I have scripts and dialogues that I can teach people. But the reason why most agents don't do agent attraction, in my mind, is they can't shift their mind. Their mind is so much into the transaction and the short term results, they cannot even shift their mind. So it all starts with your calendar. You have to be able to delineate and go from one to the other, which is not exactly easy. But I'll go 2 hours lead gen, 1 hour sphere of influence lead gen. And I've got some different lead funnels I have for sales, which I will give to people in my organization and take referral fees. So I have different funnels, but to me, if I get 3 hours in the morning and hit it hard, and sometimes it's 2 hours sales, sometimes it's 1 hour lead gen for agent attraction, I'll win. I'll win most weeks because I've won the morning, and I'm very, very disciplined. And I think I got that just early on in my career being in corporate America. I treat this as a job. I don't start at 10 a.m. I start at 7 a.m. So it's very, very orchestrated, and I'm usually done by 5.
So talk through the agent who has 0 people but wants to do it, right? And again, it's all about what you want. So I never want people to think, I need you to do this. It's like, no, because most of the time the conversation with me goes, hey, I want to add this. Like I see this It's kind of like my Achilles heel. I'm great at production, but I haven't dialed it in. What walk me through the 0 to 1 process in your opinion?
Yeah. First of all, the two things I always tell agents, I said, if you want to be a great attractor, you have to be attractive. And how you become attractive is you become the best version of yourself possible, number one. And number two, you need to learn the company. And quite honestly, we have so much to offer here, far more than any other company I know of. Most people have not really done a deep dive on everything there is in this company. So when you learn all the things that we have, then conversations are so much easier when you talk to agents, because you're thinking about, okay, that's their pain point. I can help them, with something. I can add value to them, and I'm not attached to the outcome. So, and that's a key thing. That's another thing about recruiters in general is I'm not attached to the outcome. I'm attached to helping them, whether they come to EXP or not. And people appreciate that, and that's why I win big agents over the long haul. Sometimes it might take me a year, 2 years. I brought on the managing broker in EXP Arizona, and she's fantastic. Her name's Kathy Swan. She used to work for me in a company that I owned, United Brokers Group. It took me 3 years to bring her over, and now she's, I think, one of the best brokers we have in the system.
Yeah,
So it's
absolutely. I get
relational.
great feedback about her.
Yeah, she's amazing.
So I want to hear it. What you've done that deep dive. How do you think through what parts of the opportunity should, because I will, so before you answer that, I will give a critique of where I think agents fall down is for the folks inside of our organization. They know every nook and cranny of the value proposition. And when somebody raises their hand and says, I'm curious or I'm opening to listening, we're like, sometimes some of us are overly excited and it's like, and I'm like, hold on, hold on. Like, how do you work through what parts do you share? Where do you start? Walk me through that process.
Yeah, it's when you first start trying to attract people, you verbally vomit on people because you're excited. You're pumped about the opportunity. So if I can get people to slow down their mind a little bit and ask questions, right? The power is in the question, right? So, how, if you don't mind me asking, how you doing with your goals this year? People will tell you everything if you just build trust and ask them questions. And sometimes they'll be like, well, are you trying to recruit me? Actually, I'm not. I go, let's just take EXP off the table. You can't join EXP today. It's not allowed. Let's just get to know each other. I'd like to have at the minimum a referral partner, and there's no harm in building relationships. Wouldn't you agree? So I'm into building relationships and helping them and asking questions. And then kind of when I ask questions, they're going to share a lot of information. Then my mind starts thinking, what can I do for them? How can I help them? How can I give them some articles or techniques, some skills? I have a mastermind here in Gilbert, Arizona every Tuesday, broker agnostic. We invite everybody. And I tell people this is not about recruiting. I tell the people that are in my group, if somebody comes in, this is not about recruiting. We can talk about that after the meeting if they wanted to talk about it, but it's a safe place. So I just want people to know when they work with me, they're going to produce more real estate, period.
And then what are the most interesting things that you share that people react to?
I think that one of the things I'm really good at is I'm a structured sales guy. I learned this way back in new home sales. When they're on a buyer consultation or a listing presentation, there is a structure that I actually teach. I teach rapport building, needs analysis, demonstration of yourself, and demonstration of the company and all the tools that we have. Overcoming, actually closing, overcoming objection, and closing again. And I also add the forms education in there. So when I do a buyer consultation, Leo, it's not like I'm in and out in 30 minutes. I might be there an hour and a half, because I want to educate the client. And the more patient I am with the client and I walk them through those steps, they love it. My conversion rates are very high because I teach this with all the agents. It's high fiduciary, and they feel very comfortable, and I have no problems getting the fee that I want because I'm worth every penny of it. So you have to show skills. So I teach the agents in my organization the skills to work well with their clients. It's fun.
Tell me about what the balance of the year looks like for you and where you're focused going on into 2026.
Yeah. So I've been kind of at the same level on my rev share for, gosh, like 2 years, and Phoenix has taken it on the chin the last couple of
I was
years.
going to say, if you've been consistent over the last 2 years in Arizona, you should be patting yourself on the back. And I talk about context all the time because two reasons: huge contraction, 40% contraction in unit count. But what's also happening in company dollar, and this is every company, fewer people are doing more deals, right? So in a capped model, that means that the pie has shrunk. And it does for us at the company level, and same with any company with a capped model.
I'm so glad you brought that up because you're validating what I've been thinking. And I'm happy you said that because I keep telling people in markets like this, I've been through some seriously bad markets. If you're just staying even, you're winning because
100%, 100%.
your competitors are going backwards and I'm hanging in there. And I've actually grown my group from about 150 to 161. And I've been top grading, bringing in just amazing human beings. And a lot of people that have left the organization, they're not even in the business or they went part time. So I feel like I've done a really good job and moving the needle. And now it's like, I kind of feel like I'm at the pinnacle of my career, Leo. Everything's coming together after 25 years of doing this. And I feel so.
The overnight success, Jeff. That's what people see from the outside. That's the funny part.
Yeah, so it's exciting because I feel like I have so much to offer now, and I'm more excited now. You would think after doing this 25 years, I'd be like, I'm really tired of this. Maybe in 2020 I was, but not now. I believe our company, and a lot of this is because of your hard work. We are absolutely positioned for greatness. I believe in the next when this comes around and it's slowly coming back, we're going to kill it, and I want to be there for that. And so that's what I've been working on. So next year, I want to get over that 200 people in my organization. This is something I've been really working hard at, and I'm also been I've learned commercial, which is exciting. I've never done commercial in 25 years, and I need to learn. You know, if you're not growing, you're dying. So now I feel like I have two things I can offer, and I'm getting really good on that side. And so I get up every day and I pinch myself. Right now, I'm excited.
What you're describing, there's actually a body of psychology around, and it's the progress principle, right? So if happiness is a documented science, if you will, um, and there's a strong correlation between progress and happiness in the brain. And there was actually a noted drop in happiness after the Industrial Revolution, and we did the same thing over and over again, kind of like that famous "I Love Lucy" scene where the chocolates are falling off the assembly line, versus a farmer, an iron worker, a woodworker that started with like a seed and got a crop, a piece of wood that became a piece of furniture, raw metal that became, a tool. There's something, and that's actually why we love to-do lists. And if you put 100 things on it, the brain gravitates towards like, let me do the easy 80 so you can go boom, 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 boom. And then you go, I crushed it today. And that's the difference between going, well, I live in a world where like, I got to eat the three biggest ones that create ROI for all of us. And I have to live with the anxiety that the 97 will never get done because every morning I have to pick the three.
Yeah.
Um, and so, like, I love learning stuff too, right? So, like, I'm pretty good at spearfishing since I moved to South Florida. And I've trained my brain to recognize the novice feeling as a good thing. And by happenstance, I can go back to going being on a bike when I was a little kid and going, okay, one day I'm going to be better at this. Like I remember the first time I drove stick shift, and I said to myself, like, this will be automatic one day. And like scuba diving and seeing guys shoot a fish, I'm like, oh, I want a gun. And then when I got one, I'm like, I couldn't hit a fish to save my life. And then now every time 8 out of 10 times I come out with something that I was looking for, right? Like not only hitting the fish, but getting the fish I wanted, like the actual species I was looking for. And just like recognizing it, and it's the reticular activator in the brain. And that's, I think, what you just described. It's like the brain needs, and that's actually one of the entrepreneurial risks, because I see so many entrepreneurs build a business they wanted, and 5 years in they get bored,
Yeah.
and they go blow it up.
Yeah.
Feel the entrepreneurial rush of building again, or they're like, "Oh, I'm going to go build a title company." I'm like, before you go do that, you got to triple your business, quadruple your business, because that same level of effort put into.
Yeah. It's so true. And in my opinion, what I do to keep my excitement about the business is I find joy in the people I work with and helping them, because I know when they hit their goals, I'm going to hit mine. And so I'm always trying to pick up something more. Like I've never really been a big internet lead guy, but I also have the advantage of working with Curtis and Jay Kinder, and Jay's an amazing, leader. And so I've tapped into that, because I want to learn that. I want to be able to speak intelligently to it, because I've always been a sphere of influence guy my whole career. But I'm like, you know what, there's a lot more out there, and if it gets me a good ROI and I can manage it on my plate, I'm going to take a good hard look at it. And I want to be able to offer so much to everyone that comes here. So that's exciting. Uh, yeah,
So,
exactly.
as a closing thought, what would you tell the agent or attractor who just like I just validated for you, but what are you thinking in the folks who haven't had that breakthrough? You just said you kind of feel like after 20 some years, it's all come together. What do you tell the person right before that breakthrough, right? Because like I know what you make per year across both GCI and revenue sharing. So it's a very aspirational number that a lot of folks want to get to. You've escaped the gravity of like, hey, I want to do this, and like you're where people want to be. What do you say to those people who are still kind of in that grind and trying to find the gears in place, if you will?
I think that's an easy answer, and that is that there's many people around the country, thousands, that are on their knees praying that somebody will come along and help them learn how to get to the next level. So the biggest reason why people don't grow is they're not willing to ask for help. And if you humble yourself, and the first few years after I joined EXP, I wanted to do it my way because I knew how to recruit. I've been recruiting for 25 years, but I've learned that, you know what? I need to change some things. I was doing a lot of it on my own. And because of that, I was missing a lot of growth early on instead of leaning into the team. So 80% of success is accountability. So if you don't have accountability, because one of the major reasons agents do not succeed in this business is they're an independent contractor. Two words. They get into the business, they want freedom, but they have no accountability. They have no team to lean into, no mentoring. So the number one thing I'd say is get in touch with somebody that cares about you enough to speak the truth into you, and get a true mentor that is going to work with you because they truly can, speak truth and love to you. And that is the first step, I believe, because you can't do it on your own. We're not meant to be on our own.
Not sure that we could find a better stopping point right there, Jeff. Thank you so much for your time and all your wisdom that you shared with everybody. Look forward to seeing you in person soon, my friend.
Thanks, Leo. I appreciate you.